Senator from North Carolina.
Mr. President, as a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, I firmly believe that the issue of Iraq is not about politics. It's about national security. We know that for at least 20 years, Saddam Hussein has aggressively and obsessively sought weapons of mass destruction by any means available. We know that he has chemical and biological weapons today. He's used them in the past, and he's doing everything he can to build more. Each day, he inches closer to his long-term goal of nuclear capability, a capability that could be less than a year away. I believe that Saddam Hussein's Iraqi regime represents a clear threat to the United States, to our allies, to our interests around the world, and to the values of freedom and democracy that we hold dear. Saddam has proven his willingness to act irrationally and brutally against his neighbors and against his own people. Iraq's destructive capability has the potential to throw the entire Middle East into chaos and poses a mortal threat to our vital ally, Israel. What's more, the terrorist threat against America is all too clear. Thousands of terrorist operatives around the world would pay anything to get their hands on Saddam's arsenal. And there is every possibility that he could turn those weapons over to terrorists. No one can doubt that if the terrorists of September 11th had had weapons of mass destruction, they would have used them. On September 12th, 2002, we can hardly ignore the terrorist threat and the serious danger that Saddam would allow his arsenal to be used in aid of terror. Iraq has continued to develop its arsenal in defiance of the collective will of the international community, as expressed through the United Nations Security Council. It is violating terms of the ceasefire that ended the Gulf War and ignoring as many as 16 UN Security Council resolutions, including 11 resolutions concerning Iraq's efforts to develop weapons of mass destruction. These UN resolutions are not unilateral American demands. They involve obligations Iraq has undertaken to the international community. By ignoring them, Saddam Hussein is undermining the credibility of the United Nations, openly violating international law, and making a mockery of the very idea of international collective action, which is so important to the United States and to our allies. The time has come for decisive action. With our allies, we must do whatever is necessary to guard against the threat posed by an Iraq armed with weapons of mass destruction and under the thumb of Saddam Hussein. The United States must lead an international effort to remove the regime of Saddam Hussein and to assure that Iraq fulfills its obligations to the international community. This is not an easy decision, and it carries many risks. It will also carry costs, certainly in resources and possibly in lives. After careful consideration, I believe that the risk of inaction is far greater than the risk of action. As we set our course, as we set out on this course, we must be as conscious of our special responsibility as we are confident in the righteousness and the rightness of our cause. The United States has a special role of leadership in the international community. And as America and its allies move down this path, we must do so in a way that preserves the legitimacy of our actions, enhances international consensus, and strengthens our global leadership. First, this means making the strongest possible case to the American people about the danger that Saddam poses. Months of mixed messages, high-level speculation, and news leaks about the possible military plans have caused widespread concern among the American people and among people around the world. I am encouraged that the President has overruled some of his advisors and decided to ask Congress for its support. From the support of Congress, this effort will derive even greater and more enduring strength. Second, the administration must do as much as possible to rally the support of the international community under the mandate of the United Nations Security Council. We should tap into the strengths of existing alliances like NATO to enforce such a mandate. And let me be clear, America's allies deserve more than just token consultation. The Bush administration must make a full-court press to rally global support, much like the impressive effort President Bush's father made to rally the first international coalition against Saddam in the fall of 1990. If they do, I believe they'll succeed. If, however, the United Nations Security Council is prevented from supporting this effort, then we must act with as many allies as possible to ensure that Iraq meets its obligations to existing Security Council resolutions. After all, that's what the U.S. and NATO allies, NATO allies did during the 1999 war in Kosovo when a UN Security Council resolution was impossible. Third, we must be honest with the American people about the extraordinary commitment that this task entails. It's likely to cost us much in the short term, and it is certain to demand our contention and commitment over the long term. We have to show the world that we're prepared to do what it takes to help rebuild a post-Saddam Iraq and give the long-suffering Iraqi people the chance to live under freedom. Working with our allies, we have to be prepared to deal with the consequences of success, helping to provide security inside Iraq after Saddam is gone, working with the various Iraqi opposition groups in shaping a new government, reassuring Iraq's neighbors about its future stability, and supporting the Iraqi people as they rebuild their lives. This is a massive undertaking, and we must pursue it with no illusions. Ensuring that Iraq complies with its commitments to the international community is the mission of the moment. Rebuilding Iraq and helping it evolve into a democracy at peace with itself and its neighbors will be the mission of many years. Unfortunately, this administration's record does give me some concern. They must not make the same mistakes they've made in the past. In a post-Saddam Iraq, we can't replicate the mistakes that were made in the post-Taliban Afghanistan, where the administration has been dangerously slow in making the real commitment necessary to help democracy take root and thrive. Finally, the administration must show that its actions against Iraq are part of a broader strategy to strengthen American security around the world. We must address the most insidious threat posed by weapons of mass destruction, the threat that comes from the ability of terrorists to obtain them. We must do more to support the many disarmament programs already in place to dismantle weapons and prevent access to weapons-grade materials in Russia and the former Soviet states. We must fully fund Nunn-Lugar, and we should work hard to forge international coalition to prevent proliferation. We must be fully and continuously engaged to help resolve the crisis between Israel and the Palestinians. Disengagement was a mistake. The United States cannot deliver peace to these parties, but no agreement is possible without our active involvement and engagement. We also must have a national strategy for energy security, working to strengthen relationships with new suppliers and doing more to develop alternative sources of power. And we must do far more to promote democracy throughout the Arab world. We should examine our overall engagement in the entire region and employ the same kinds of tools that we used to win the battle of ideas fought during the Cold War, from vigorous public diplomacy to assistance for democratic reforms at the grassroots. The path of confronting Saddam is full of hazards, but the path of inaction is far more dangerous. This week, a week where we remember the sacrifice of thousands of innocent Americans made on 9/11, the choice couldn't be starker. Had we known that such attacks were imminent, we surely would have used every means at our disposal to prevent them and to take out the plotters. We can't wait for the terrible moment, or, if weapons of mass destruction are used, one far worse, to address the clear and present danger posed by Saddam Hussein's Iraq. I yield the floor. I believe that Saddam Hussein is a serious threat, and I believe he must be disarmed, including the use of military force if necessary. We cannot allow him to have nuclear weapons. We need a new domestic intelligence agency to track down terrorists here in America, infiltrate their cells, and stop them before they do us harm. We need more border patrols to keep terrorists out. We need more port inspections to keep weapons out. And we need to improve domestic readiness so police, firefighters, and EMTs have the resources they need to respond to any threat. America is the world's superpower. We should stay there. We should maintain our strength, our economic strength, our military strength.